You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den, episode 9 with Susan Stiffelman. What to say to your kids about dating and blending families during the holidays. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dating Den. And, on YouTube, I invite hot, sexy men into the den. But what I love about this podcast is I get to be with hot, sexy women who are also brilliant and really the people that I respect most in a lot of areas that I am not an expert and that I am constantly on the upward spiral around. And one of the topics that I'm most passionate about is parenting. And so I'm very excited to bring to you today Susan Stiffelman, who I will tell you more about in a minute, but a fish. She's a marriage and family therapist. She's a credentialed teacher. She's a licensed psychotherapist. And really, she has devoted 30 years to working with families to create greater harmony and deeper connection between parents and their children. She's got a weekly column on Huffington Post. She's their parent coach. And her main jam is that she believes that children need to know that they can depend on their parents. I'm just reading this and going, yes, to depend on their parents to guide them through the ups and downs of their lives. Like the captain is able to navigate rough and stormy seas. Parents are meant to function as their child's best source of comfort and direction by confidently steering the ship. So yay, Susan, thank you for being here.
Woohoo, so much fun. Great.
I just love having you on here because, when I sort of do my work on like who I am, like at my core, I'm a parent and I'm also a wife and I was also a divorced person and I was also a single person. But the thing that I always was and am is a parent. And I think that when we take on that role, it really shifts everything in our life. And so to have you on here to help women who are dating or in relationship and how that impacts our children is just a really big blessing. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
So I want to sort of set the scene. I mean, when you're working with families and working with parents who are single, what happens with kids? I mean, there's the whole thing, they go through divorce, but then what happens when a child is in a home and their parent is single, whether they're divorced or they were always single?
Okay, there's so many angles that we could come at that. So the first thing that's really important when you are single parenting is that you have clear delineation between you and your kid, that the boundaries are defined and that your child does not become your partner or the other, your companion or, I wrote 2 parenting books, Parenting Without Power Struggles and Parenting with Presence. And they both begin with this fundamental thing that you touched on, which is this idea of being the captain of the ship. So to illustrate that, I use my hands, and I know people can't see me, but I'm going to do it anyway because this is how I roll. So if my right hand is the parent, left hand is the child, this position where the parent hand is above the child doesn't mean the parent's better or more worthy of respect or in control, but it's about being in charge. So I call it that captain of the ship, and that's super comforting for a child, particularly when there's upheaval in their life, to know that the parent is the grown-up in the room. When the child wants something or pushes limits or says, I'm not going to do this homework assignment. It's really stupid. My teacher's an idiot. I'm just not into it. If the parent moves into lawyer mode with the child and starts arguing or trying to convince the child of why the homework should be done, then the hands are side by side. Nobody's in charge.
Wow.
Call it the 2 lawyers. And a lot of parents live here. We're constantly negotiating, arguing, trying to convince. And if it's a situation where the child's just unhappy, I don't know why you have to go out on that date. That guy's so stupid. If you go from captain mode to lawyer mode, you will try to engage that child's left logical, rational, language-based brain, and he isn't over in his left logical brain. He's in a feeling mode. He's feeling things. So we start out going back. We have the captain of the ship, right hand above the left, or the two lawyers where you're arguing and negotiating and nobody's in charge, or put the child's hand on top of the parent's. Parent's hand is below the child. The child saying, well, I'm not going to do the assignment. You can't make me. And the parent feels out of control, feels desperate, feels panicked. Oh my gosh, the teacher's going to think I'm a terrible parent, or Johnny's never going to graduate from, 5th grade, and whatever the fear is that you harbor in your mind. And in an effort to feel better, the parent to feel better as well as the child, the parent moves into what I call dictator mode. And they bribe, they threaten, they intimidate. Just like a dictator has no authentic power. Dictators rule by fear and intimidation. They wipe out your bank account. They kill your family. When we're down here in dictator mode, right hand below the left, the parent below the child, we feel desperate and out of control. And if the child is saying, I hate that guy you've been dating, he's such a loser, I'm going to kick him when he comes in the door. Right?
Yeah.
And you're in dictator mode as opposed to the captain who's inhabiting the room as the grown-up. You're going to say, if you do one thing to sabotage this relationship, I'm gonna, right? Because the boundaries become porous. But if you're that captain of the ship, you are able not to see your child as kind of an adversary or someone who could sabotage you as a fellow adult. You also don't turn to your child for advice on, would you think I should wear this or that? You allow the child to relax in knowing that if the ship hits rocky, stormy seas, like I don't want to do my homework or I'm freaked out that my mom's dating, that the parent holds that place as the steady, sturdy one. It looks like you're not very happy that mommy's going out on a date. Tell me about it. Anyway, it was a long-winded way of answering your question, but.
No, but what's so cool about it is I'm thinking of all these clients that I have that have been in all these situations. So I'm actually we're going to talk about some situations, but I certainly have made errors and been in all those different places
Sure.
with my kids.
Yeah.
But what I want to really point out here is that being the captain is engaging in a conversation. Right? So why is it effective, or how is it effective when you're asking or acknowledging the feelings of the child? Why does that work versus like lawyering or
Okay.
rather than like threatening, or why is that an important
All right.
piece?
Cool. Marni, let's role play it. Okay.
Great.
So before we do that, I just want to explain, because I'm just going to skim the surface on some stuff. I teach online classes, and one of the elements of what I teach is called Act 1 parenting, which means that we come alongside our kids rather than at them when there's a problem. When you come at anybody with force, with logic, with explanations, with a defending yourself, they tend to be resistant. So what you're going to see me do first is what I don't want your listeners to do, but it's just to lay the foundation. I'm going to just give you a glimpse into something called Act 2 parenting, which is where we come at our kids. Most of us do this. This is real common. It's how we were raised, most of us. So we don't, we kind of tend to do what's intuitive or natural. But we are going to see that it evokes resistance. Act 2 parenting, it's sort of like going to a play and sitting down and getting there early, and the curtain rises and you're suddenly in Act 2. Like there's the guy, climbing the wall, and there's the lady crying in the corner. Like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this yet. I don't know what the storyline is. In Act 1, which I'll do after we demonstrate the first one, you'll see me coming alongside you, being that captain of the ship, acknowledging what you're going through by allowing you to feel heard and understood, not needing you as that dictator to feel better necessarily, or to make me feel better. And in Act 1, you'll see me kind of getting you to say yes or nod your head 3 times. I won't be super wordy, and I'll just be creating space for your feelings. So let's start out by doing Act 2. I'm going to come at you when you deliver your complaint.
Okay, I'm going to channel my most rebellious teenager.
Okay, great. Woohoo! Fun.
Or maybe like a 10-year-old. I don't know. Okay, so since it's almost the holidays, let's talk about let's set up a situation in this role play.
Right.
Okay, so it is the first time. It's the first holiday season. Mom and Dad are getting a divorce, and Mom is making me go to her new boyfriend's for Thanksgiving, and I'm pissed.
Perfect.
Okay. So, and I think I don't know how old I'll be, so we'll just see what shows up.
Okay, honey, come on, time to get in the car. We're going to go to Jared's house.
I don't want to go to Jared's house because I don't even know Jared, and he's your boyfriend. He's not my dad.
Listen, you've met him like 5 times. He's making a lot of effort to make this nice for you. He's going out of his way, and it's going to be fun. Like, he's even gotten a couple of board games. You're going to love it.
Oh my, board games are so stupid, and there's going to be no kids there, and you're going to just hold his hand and look at him stupid, and it's embarrassing. You're embarrassing.
So can't you be happy for me? Don't you care about how I feel? Like, is he that awful that you can't just be happy that I finally found a really good guy who's really kind and he wants to get to know you? How bad is that really?
It's really bad because I never asked you to find a guy. I was happy the way it was before, and you're making me do stuff so that he likes you more and he thinks you have like a great kid, and I don't want to be that person. I hate him. I hate
my gosh. Do you know how many things, how many sacrifices I've made for you? I have done so many things to just try and give you a good life. I work hard. I'm with you. I coach your soccer thing. Can't you just please help me move out? It's been a difficult year. Can't we just sort of move on and have a good time tonight? All right. So how's that going, Marni?
So as the channeling my inner teenager, what I was going to say next is this is the point where I just take out my phone and totally ignore you. I stop answering your questions.
Yes. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I've heard my clients talk about situations like this, and I've been at those events where you're at Thanksgiving and your cousin brought her boyfriend and the boyfriend's kid, and you're like, oh God, this poor kid.
All right. So that's Act 2. That's what I don't want you guys to do. And that's coming at. That is, the child has expressed a complaint. By the way, we've also made the mistake most people make, which is that we took at face value the word part of her message, disregarding what's probably more important but may not have been articulated. So when a child's upset, and this goes for teenagers as well, when any of us are upset, but particularly a child, imagine that there's this gaseous mass of emotion around their belly, like this roiling, shapeless, messy thing going on around their belly of just feeling, raw feeling. And in an effort to get our help with it, they wrap this massive gassy feeling or, shapeless emotion in gauzy, thin wrapping paper, just so they can contain it long enough to present it to us for help. The gauzy wrapping paper around this massive emotion is the word part of their message. It is not their message. And we take at face value the word part, the gauzy wrapping paper. We get tricked into believing that's what their complaint is about. So the child says, your boyfriend's really stupid. He dresses like a dork. And we start debating his fashion style.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with what the guy wears. If we disregard the gauzy wrapping paper, in this case, the word part about our boyfriend's dressing style, and we go using Act 1, we penetrate, we go underneath to the true message, we'll often find it has nothing to do. It may not even have to do with your boyfriend. It may be, I really miss daddy right now. And we have this opportunity when our child delivers a complaint, not to take it personally, but to see it as really valuable information that the child is attempting in perhaps a clumsy way to send to us so that we can be better informed as the captain of the ship about the condition of the ship. In this case, how is my child doing? Is there a leak in the hull of the ship? Is there a rip in the sail? We want to know if we're the captain. And when the child delivers a complaint, you could see it as almost a gem. Like, oh, thank goodness, they're giving me information. I may not want to hear it. It may be painful to hear. I'd love for them to love my boyfriend and for us all to be happy, but much better off knowing what's going on than for that child to start turning to her Facebook friends, for support, or drinking, or having promiscuous sex at 14, or whatever it might be. You want to be the one who knows, and that's why being the captain of the ship is so essential.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. So are we gonna
Ready?
Yeah.
So now we're gonna do Act 1, and you're gonna see me pulling on the thread, disregarding the gauzy wrapping paper to get at the heart of what's going on.
Okay. So now I have to recreate
wait. Sorry,
my
Marni.
orneriness. Yes.
One more piece. The last thing I want to say about this Act 1 is oftentimes what you want to do is help the child feel sad.
Okay.
And I do a whole series on that, which is that we move the child. When a child's frustrated, they're either going to become aggressive or they're going to adapt with our help.
Okay.
And that's a whole nother piece we will or won't get into. But when you counter with, Act 2, and you push against them and you argue, you're likely to escalate aggression, whether it's toward yourself, toward themselves, toward the boyfriend, toward the dog, toward the sibling. Whereas if you move them using Act 1 to feel their sadness, so we go through denial, we go through anger, we go through bargaining, and we don't get stuck. And we help them just feel their sadness by being present with them. Then they make peace with life as it is. All right, that's all I'm going to say.
Wow, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to try and recreate my same level of ornery on this.
Okay, honey, come on. It's time to get in the car. We're going to Jared's house.
I don't want to go to his house. I don't even know him, and I want to go to Dad's, and I just don't want to go. Why are you making me go?
So it sounds like this is sort of the last thing you'd like to be doing right now.
Well, yeah, obviously.
And you miss Daddy.
I do. I miss our regular Thanksgiving.
Yeah. You know what? It's hard. There's a part of me that misses it too. It is kind of weird. And I can imagine that going to this guy you hardly know for this traditional dinner might feel pretty weird.
Yeah, it's super awkward. I don't like being around adults, and and you're gonna not spend any time with me, and I'm just gonna be there awkward.
You know what? I'm glad you've told me, because I can actually, when I slow down and I sort of see it from your point of view, I'll bet it's really hard for you.
Yeah, it is.
Has it been hard for a while, honey? Do you?
I don't want to talk about this, Mom.
Okay.
I just don't want to go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? I'm glad you told me, because it's hard for me to hear for sure. I do have some weird fantasy like, oh, it's going to be so great, and Daisy's going to love, Marnie's going to love Jared, and so I just want you to know I'm listening.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
Now let's stop the role play for a second.
Yeah.
A few things happened in there.
Okay.
The first thing is that I want everybody to hear this. When a child says, "Why do I have to go?" and you answer that question because you think they are actually curious about why they have to go, you've made a mistake, because that's code for I don't want to go.
Right.
Why can't I go to the mall is code for I wish I could go to the mall. Now, later, when they're calm and sane and quiet and all that, it may be that they genuinely want, why is it that I can't go to the mall with my friends, or why are we going to Jared's? But in this moment, it's code for, it's another way of the child saying, I really don't want to go.
Right.
So you notice I didn't jump into any explanations of why we were going to Jared's, and that's why.
Yeah, you totally made the conversation be about me instead of you. which I think in the other experience, it was all about the mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And kids, listen, they're so right on a lot of the time. I mean, it is weird for a kid to go spend time with a family that he or she doesn't know for an important family traditional holiday. It's super weird. And the more you can be a truth teller with your kids and say, man, I'm glad you're telling me, not that I didn't know, but I want to hear this. And now she's not running to the car. I'm not expecting suddenly she's, great, Mom, I'm glad you listened. Let's go to Jared's house. But we take baby steps in this, in my world. If the train is going 100 miles an hour east and you realize, oh no, I wanted to go west, you don't suddenly go 100 miles an hour west. First you slow down the train. Then you stop the train. Then you slowly build up speed going in the direction that you intended to go in the first place. So if nothing else, you still may say, I really hear you, and this sounds incredibly awkward, and I get that you're missing Daddy, and I'm really glad that you told me. And you might just let her sit in the joy of having been heard for a minute. And what might surprise you, and people never understand why this works, but I've taught thousands of people, is that they then get in the car. Not always, but sometimes simply having been heard, there's a relaxation. And there's sort of, you don't need to keep tagging on. I know you don't want to go, but we're going. I know you don't like Jared, but we're going. Like every time you keep, it's like salt in the wound. You don't need to keep saying it. If you've said it and you're the captain of the ship, then it's fact. It's not, it disempowers you if you keep saying, but we really need to go, okay?
Right. Okay, so let me ask you a question about this specifically. So is it okay to bargain? Like, what is it okay to say, okay, I'll go, but like, when I give you the sign, is there a way that we could go? Or if we go for 2 hours, can you drop me off at Jane's?
I would be totally fine with that. As long as it's done respectfully, I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, cool. So you can negotiate with the hostage if the hostage stops being a hostage.
Well, they need to stop being a hostage. Otherwise, it's a bad precedent. But I would say, you know what? I'm glad you told me. I really get it. It's awkward. I would like to propose something that makes you feel maybe a little bit better, which is, this is going to be our signal. You wave your hand, or the code word will be mountain climbing. And if that's going on and you feel like you've put in at least a couple of hours, let me know, because I really want you to feel like you have a way out when it's starting to feel too hard.
Okay, so what I hear you saying too is that we have to look at this really as a compromise. Right? Like, so mom does maybe have to compromise. So one thing I was thinking of, like, okay, I can leave after a couple hours. Can I be on my phone? Right? Can I play game? If I because when you said, what do people think of my kid? Right? Like, I'm bringing this kid in. And so the kid also has this stress of like, and I have to be like perfect. So Jared likes me. So also saying like, acknowledging you're going to be at a place maybe where there's not a lot of kids, or there's no kids, or you have to play with this boy that you don't really know. So how can I make that? What would make it easier for you? Yes, you could play a game.
I've done this whole summit
on technology, right?
Yeah, on parenting the digital age. It's still there on my website. That was phenomenal with, Dan Siegel and all these fantastic people. And I'll just tell you what you probably don't want to hear, or as your listeners, no, I really don't think it's a good arrangement to say you can go, but you can be on your phone. You have to go, but you can be on your phone. I'm kind of old school in terms of, even if it's a very awkward situation and she doesn't know anybody, or I would feel that on a Thanksgiving holiday, at least for an hour and a half of the time of the meal, that this is a social skill training, that you learn how to have conversations with people, even if you're not excited about them. I don't think it's a good message to say, yes, you can be planted in the middle of a group of people, but you can disregard them by looking at your phone.
I love this. I'm so glad I asked that, because I think in the spirit of the battles that we choose to have with our children, right? I could see somebody being like, oh God, at least they're coming. I'll let them do whatever they want while they're there, because
I don't. Yeah.
And so I love that you're saying, like, And just because, we got to this hurdle, there might be others. And as the captain of the ship, I am willing to say, we still have to get there safely.
And the thing is, you can't be afraid of your children. And when a parent is divorced or they're single and they're starting to date and they're so hungry and longing for companionship and a special someone, it can prompt you to make compromises in your parenting. And I'm not across the board, black and white, never do that. I'm not saying that. But I also believe that when we respond to a child who is complaining or unhappy about something with a compromise, with a fix that we really shouldn't be doing, we're sort of saying, I do not have faith in your capacity to cope with this.
Brilliant.
And there you're undermining the development of resilience. And I would rather this kid not like you for a week or longer, if necessary, be the grown up. And that means they're going to be unhappy. They're not going to like you. They may favor the other parent who's more lenient, all that kind of stuff. I'm doing a course right now, actually, with Wendy Beharry on co-parenting with a narcissist. They may not like you. They may favor the parent who has all kinds of bends all the rules. But kids, we know this. They need you to be solid and sturdy. And that means, no, it's totally weird to have a kid on a phone at a Thanksgiving meal. It's just, that's
No, it's not okay. I love this. I remember that moment when I had to do that. And I remember getting down on my kid's level. I think she was in ninth grade. Really pissed, got pulled out of her private school. Totally, dad's the hero always. And I remember I was like, look, I am willing for you to not like me. That I hate it, but my job is to keep you safe. And so this is the rule. And if that's what it has to look like, then I'm okay with it. And I just remember literally feeling like I was taking a knife and stabbing it into my heart.
That's awesome.
And it was a turning point.
But when my son's 26 now, and when he was about 21, he wrote me a letter for my birthday. It was a beautiful letter. And in one of the opening parts of the letter was kind of thanking me for the times I had said no. So,
and you can look at it your kid's 26, but I have one who's 21. So, but when you're in there with three kids who are 4, 8, and 9, you're like, ah!
Make sure you have friends, especially if you're a single parent. I was also a single parent for a long time. Make sure that you have friends. This is sort of what I said at the beginning, because it's not your kid. Your kid needs to be your child, not your friend.
I love that. Okay, let's change the subject in terms of the scenario. So I want to make sure I can get as much Susan time as I can. So this is a issue that totally used to come up for me. We're talking still about the holidays. What do you do if one parent that's not you is significantly more affluent than the other? And there's the gifts. And I have a friend of mine, a dear single friend, and she was constantly my ex-husband just takes them on these trips all over the world, and I'm and we're gonna watch a movie in my apartment, and I will make you hot cocoa, and so what do you do, how do you handle that as a single parent?
Grief.
Say more.
Well, yeah. I think that one of the things that we're least skillful at in our culture is being sad. Not being sad and being stuck in it like depression, but we medicate ourselves, we drink, we turn on our TV, we are constantly looking at our phone. Life, somewhere we may have gotten the misconception that life is always supposed to feel fair and good. Now, I don't believe life is hard. I don't get into that whole thing of, oh my gosh, well, life isn't fair. But on the other hand, I think life is a big school, a big classroom, and not everyone gets the same curriculum. And I've done a lot of work, I've done teaching quite a few sessions with Byron Katie now, which is incredible because I love her work so much. And so a lot of what I would work with in that scenario would be the story that it should be equitable, or that my kids will be confused by the difference in our affluence and what we can do for them. Or my kids are going to be miserable if we just stay in my apartment and watch a movie with hot cocoa because they've had this other experience. And, it's so much of what derails us is what we tell ourselves, the stories we believe between our ears. It's not necessarily factual. So I have had for many years a practice in a very affluent part of the country, one of the most, Malibu, California. People who are famous, they're powerful, they're rich, they have homes all over, airplanes, all of that. And I will tell you that I have worked with hundreds of families and kids. And those children are no happier than the kids I've worked with who are living, baseline. I mean, if poverty is a factor, then it's another story. But the kids, I remember, and I had this once on my Facebook page, I told this story and people really liked it, that I had a client once whose family was very, very wealthy and had an airplane, had houses in various parts of the country, had a chef, had a tennis court, had the golf cart, had, the swimming pool and all that. And I remember this kid saying to me once, I wish we lived in a really small house with just my mom and dad and me and my brother. And there was such a longing for this simple way of being with mom and dad. And so what we know nurtures children and feeds them at their soul level are the small glances, the kiss on the top of the head, the telling the joke, the cuddle, the snuggle. That doesn't need to happen in Paris. It doesn't need to happen on a yacht, That is actually interesting and fun and, flashy and cool and a fun thing to tell your friends about or take pictures of. But in the end, that woman in the apartment, if she's having a real connected moment, she's fully present with her child, they're having a laugh, they're making a weird dessert with whatever is in the pantry, that may be the most memorable experience of that child's holiday season.
That's so powerful. So let me ask you this question also about holidays, but I think this is sort of just on behalf of, I think, a lot of women who don't have kids.
Okay.
And, my husband came into our family, not ever wanting to have kids of his own, but loving my kids, but never had the experience of being a dad, bio dad, I call him. Right. So we have a lot of women that come around dating with dignity that maybe they wanted them but didn't have them, or maybe they just never had children. Really struggling with dating someone, especially around the holidays, and really understanding what is appropriate around kids, quote unquote, coming first. What can we tell our listeners so that they can be great partners, not take things. We have clients who get jealous over the kids. They take things personally around the kids. They, how do we cope with that?
I think it's really a matter of adjusting expectations. If you could adjust the expectation that over the holidays, you're basically not going to have that much contact with your boyfriend, for instance, or that, because let me back up, their kids should come first.
Right.
The kids need to come first. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm really sorry about that. It might seem incredibly unfair, and you might have had this long-standing dream of, ice skating on Christmas Day with your loved one, and then going out for hot cocoa and snuggling in front of the fire, and instead he's with his 3 kids, and yeah, if you want to come, honey, you can, and you're hanging out at his house, I don't know, playing a board game you don't even understand the rules for.
Right.
Like, so this is a matter of adjusting expectations in the same way that you would, for instance, if one of his children was injured and he had to break a date because he had to go to the hospital, or his kid was sick and he had to stay home instead of taking you out. If you are dating someone with children, their children will come first. That doesn't mean that if you are a person with children, you shouldn't date. It just means this is the package that a person is getting when they get you, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. The flip side of this, of course, is the people who do have children. Fly your freak flag. You've got kids. That's who you are.
Right.
And so, but if you're dating someone and you've never had kids, it will be hard for you. And it's fine to be really sad about it. Be careful not to lay a guilt trip on your boyfriend, ladies, because that could easily turn into a deal breaker. If you ask a man to choose between you and his children, or you complain too much that, he's putting them first, you will sort of be announcing that you're not flexible enough to really be a long-term partner. That's my opinion, because it's scary for a person with children to introduce their kids to a potential, partner or someone they're dating. I mean, it's scary for somebody who's trying their best to do it consciously. We're all trying.
Yep.
And so the more you can, I'm not saying be a doormat. I'm not saying make it okay if he breaks every date because he forgot that Johnny had soccer practice. But especially around the holidays, the more you can adjust your expectations to match a more likely reality, which is that he will be pretty preoccupied with his children and their needs, and that it's a hard time for his children, and his children did not sign up for his divorce. So he will feel a particular responsibility and some degree of guilt around not giving him the two-parent, mommy, daddy house anyway. You'll just be making the relationship, you'll be pushing the relationship in ways that I would suggest you not do.
I give the same. I'm glad I've been giving the same sort of advice, because I totally would have been like, you're out. You don't support my kids. Wow. It was totally a deal breaker for me. One of my favorite recent stories is that I went to move my daughter into college, and I'm a mom, number one, first kid going to college, and I became, I expressed my sadness over that first one leaving the nest by wanting to over decorate her dorm room. And I was like, I need to put every little tiny t-shirt into the thing. And my husband was great. He was putting up curtains until it was about 11 o'clock at night. And then he was like, really? I think she can put her toothpaste in the cupboard by herself. And I just had to say, I know this is crazy. I know I'm totally doing my thing. But this is what I need to do. And what was really great was he was like, okay, so here's what I need. I'm going to go back to the hotel room and chill out, and you do what you need to do.
Nice.
And I don't like it, but I understand it.
Great.
And so, to me, as I was dating, those little moments where he started to show that side of himself, for me, that was a sign that this is a quality guy who is going to be a good match. So, I understand. So yeah, that's really, really good. Is you don't want to make him feel guilty, because really, I think a guy who wants to put his kids first is actually probably a great guy, right?
To me, that's just huge.
Huge.
That's huge.
Okay.
That's a plus.
So my last question, 'cause I'm fitting them all in. Blended families on the holidays. We used Jared, but sometimes there's other kids. I had a client actually once, oh my God, she came to a phone call just crying, she was trying to be a great stepmom. And the little 4-year-old looked at her and just said, when daddy was around, I don't like you, and you're never going to replace my mommy, and my client was just like, and she had been so supportive and trying to give space, but not too space. And it was devastating. So is there any tips you have? If you're either, you're officially in a relationship now, or you just moved in together, or you're just married and it's a blended family. What are some tips you have?
The first is to go very slowly in establishing a relationship with your stepchildren. I sort of suggest that step-parents view themselves as a friendly and caring uncle or aunt rather than another parent to the stepchild. Generally speaking, we like the biological parent to always be the one to do the disciplining. If you insinuate yourself in and you're the step-parent, or you try and parent your stepkids, it doesn't bode well. then one of the fundamentals of my work is I teach people the stages of attachment. There's 6 stages that children move through in the first 6 years of life. And when you're coming into a child's life and you're blending a family, you need to build attachment using that model where you just start out letting them know that you like to be around them. There's a lot of elements to it, but, see it in the long view that this is, don't force yourself upon your stepchild. Don't need them to like you. Be okay when they tell you they hate you. You're never going to be their real mommy or daddy. You're not their real mommy. You're not their daddy. Again, adjusting expectations and moving into a place of understanding that most of those nasty kind of comments that kids can say or things they can do that are hurtful, they're not personal. If you could reframe them as announcements that this child is having difficulty coping with the change in their parental situation or their home life, that they're more announcements about that than they are anything to do with you. If they are personal, listen, and it may be that they're giving you some useful feedback. If you're hovering too much or you're disinterested, those are both things that can make it more difficult to develop and blend a loving family. So the process really is going to be making a real effort to get to know each child slowly and on their terms, and cutting them a lot of slack when they're not super into you or responsive, and not disciplining them, not trying to put yourself in a parental position, and having a positive attitude toward their biological father or mother can also make it much easier for children. Gosh, did your mom buy you that shirt? That's so awesome if you're the stepmom, so that they don't feel that there's a competition.
That's an important one. What's interesting too is, my ex-husband remarried, right? So I have to go with that jam too. And so I had to make a conscious effort to say, did your stepmom put that nail polish on you? It's so pretty, right? And to not take it personally. It's so hard with whichever end you're on. And so,
I know.
But that goes back to that being the captain of the ship,
Yes.
being the grown up in the room.
Yes. Yeah, I've been there too, Marni. I mean, when my son's dad got involved with someone else, and I wasn't with someone, or I was dating but not really with someone, it was hard. It felt like they had a whole big flock and family, and it was just me and him a lot of the time. And I've been there, and it's a journey. That was my classroom. Those were the lessons I had to learn. I'm now very happily married for the past year and a half, and I have just the best husband. When I didn't know it was possible, and he has a great relationship with my son, and I have a great relationship with his, but it's a process.
It definitely is. Okay, so last tip I'm going to ask you, because I also see a lot of women who are single moms. Whether they say it consciously or unconsciously, they're saying, you know what, I'm going to sort of use my kids as a reason not to date. Like, I'm going to stay safe and protected. So last tip or last words of wisdom from Susan. Is it, or why is it important to let your kids know, that you have a life or that you need to date? Is that something that should be a concern, or is it totally cool to just be like, you know what, I'll wait 18 years to be gone and then I'll date?
I would not do the latter unless you want to live that kind of life because it's what you choose, but not because of your children. It's too much of a responsibility, overtly or subtly, to place on them that they're responsible for you being deprived of a normal, balanced life. I think it's important that kids know that you have a life. I don't think it's good to date, certainly within the first 6 months to a year. And I don't think it's good to introduce your children to the person you're dating for a good 6 months. That's my preference. I think it's important to pursue the relationship and develop the relationship, to see if it has legs before if you're thinking of marrying this person, if you're thinking of really having it be a long-term, because having a series of men or women showing up, it's not good for kids. It's not their thing. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't date, but it also is suggesting you don't need to include them in that process. Depends a lot on how the child's adjusting to the divorce, whether you're going to make it known to them that you're dating. But in general, children do well when we're happy and when we're living a balanced and full life. Trickle down theory.
I love it. So, ladies, clearly you are going to now run to SusanStiffelman.com. She has a video called Love Flooding. And she told me before we started the show, like, people watch this video and they're like, oh my gosh, this was a game changer. So the website, the link is in the show notes. So make sure you go there. You know, I believe I couldn't have been a good single mom without also understanding how to be a good mom at the same time. And so I think everybody who's listening to the show needs to have a parenting expert in their hip pocket. And you should definitely go to SusanStiffelman.com and get on, because whether it's being part of your technology summit that you did or your classes, definitely if you're dating and you're a mom, you wanna have Susan in your inbox. Susan, thank you for being here. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Likewise, right back at ya.
And ladies, make sure that you, if you want more information about Susan, again, read the show notes, SusanStiffelman.com. And in the meantime, single moms, please date. And when you do date with dignity. All right, we'll see you in the next show. Bye.
Bye.